Larry Kudlow, there is probably no way out of this. All right. I guess this is the hope matrix. I'm guessing he's talking about like finances. You mean because you can't fix a supply chain problem with monetary policy from the Fed?
So today's CPI inflation report came in a lot stronger than folks expected. And in fact, there were numerous signs that not only is the inflation...
By the way, one of my favorite things in economics is it's baseline against expectations, as opposed to some sort of like concrete reality. This happens with stocks all the time. You ever seen a country take a shit because, or a company on the stock market, like their stock goes down because some asshole hedge fund was saying they were supposed to make $10 billion and they only made 8? And you're like, and they literally, a company will lose $20 billion in stock worth because they missed a $2 billion line in expectations set up by Fox Business assholes. It's so odd. Thanks, Dr. Kev's gal. Late to the party, so here's my cover charge. Love you, Hal, and fellow sparklers. Thank you for that.
Not peaking, but actually it may be accelerating. I'll get to that in a moment. But
yeah.
I feel it's my duty to report President Biden's response. Exxon made more money than God this year. That's how he responded. And then he proceeded to bash the oil companies for not drilling. Well, why aren't they drilling?
Yeah, why aren't they drilling? They've got a bunch of unused leases on public and private lands.
Well, because they make more money and then they buy back their stock, which should be taxed. Now, I'm just paraphrasing his statement.
Oh, I see. So they shouldn't do. They should what?
But it's an indecipherable word salad, so I decided to spare you all of it. The gist of it is blame big oil.
I see. Okay, thank you. At least you broke it down into a sort of an emotional argument instead of a material financial argument that on something like Fox Business, I don't know, somebody could actually argue the merits either way. Yeah, the dollar just hit a 20-year high. This motherfucker's going to tell us that they're going to destroy the dollar.
And then later on, his NEC director, Brian Deese, said, if you really isolate what's going on here, Vladimir Putin decided to take on this irresponsible war.
Yeah, well, it took 5 million barrels out of the world mix, raising the price. Tell you what, you're at Fox Business, go tap someone on the shoulder, change the names around, ask somebody like a hypothetical where you don't say Trump, Putin, or Biden, but you just kind of go, this guy did this, and this guy did this, and this guy he removed 5 million barrels of oil per day out of the system because he's murdering and raping people, and we don't want to buy from murderers and rapists any more than we have to, I suppose. And the reaction to that has actually caused the price of oil to go up, and everyone will look at you like you're a moron and go, yeah, that's how it works, stupid.
So there you have it, the blame game. Big oil, big pharma, big poultry.
Big poultry. All right.
Big Putin, big. Blame business. And of course,
blame business. Not so much. I mean, arguably, a lot of businesses are being hurt by the inflated energy costs.
But of course, what's driving inflation is the lagged impact of massive federal spending.
No, it isn't. Fucking hell. This dude's just going to pretend it isn't about oil or any of this stuff. And are we going to do the whole printing money shit? The Fed doesn't print money.
And borrowing.
And borrowing. We haven't, asshole, we haven't even addressed any borrowing that the Biden administration has done. And the deficit was cut in half last year.
And money printing. And on top.
No, it isn't. We didn't print a bunch of fucking money. CPI is up because of supply chain issues and energy costs. Has nothing to do with how much money is in the situation. God damn it. Like, I get into arguments about this all the time. But if... let me just... I'll pull this up. Back up, because it's going to put me on a video one. I got to find a recent news thing. Liquidity. If there's excess liquidity, then you would have monetary inflation. Prices going up because there's too much money floating around and it's worth less. That's how that works. We are not in that situation. There is not enough money in the world system, US dollars, floating around the world system for people to pay their bond payments to other countries, much less the United States. They are fighting to get their hands on dollars, tearing it away from the US system. We don't print money and then it stays on our fucking borders. It's childish. I don't know what this ridiculous argument is. And we wouldn't even be approaching a liquidity crisis if any of this stuff was true. Lord almighty, it's just lame.
On top of that, of course, Biden's radical environmental policies.
His radical environmental policies that gave us 36% more oil and gas leases given out in his first year than Trump did.
Which have made it virtually impossible to get a permit for almost anything.
Bullshit?
Oil, natural gas, pipelines.
My levels are fucked up volume-wise. Is it me or now am I louder than him? Sorry, because they're not all the same. Hold on.
Highways, roads.
Oh, he's quiet again. I see. These are not all these. I just jumped into this one, so I didn't get to test it. Yeah, hold on. Let me boost this a little bit, if I may.
Wind and solar farms will be stopped by the woke policies of the most radical
What? All right.
EPA in our history. And then throw in energy and interior departments pursuing the same Green Deal agenda. So
The Green Deal agenda.
all companies really don't feel like making long-run investments because they read the newspapers and they watch our show.
Yeah, that's what it is. Oil companies don't want to invest in oil in the future because it's not going to be a product people are using. So, of course, the price is going to go up. Well, if renewables don't work, why would that be true even remotely? Also, then they would just sell it overseas. We may be advancing, but shale oil, if we never use another drop of oil in this country, ever, not ever, starting today, forever going forward. We use all nuclear and renewables and geothermal and all that shit. And that we switched over in a day. We were able to flip a switch and never use oil or coal again. The oil and gas that are pumped out of the United States would just be sent to countries that have not yet adapted. They just wouldn't sell it in this. We would eliminate this market. Now, if Vladimir, here's a good question for the Fox Business folks. If Vladimir Putin removing 5 million barrels a day of oil from the market by declaring war on Ukraine and the rest of the world reacting to it, not wanting to buy from his murderous regime, drives the price of oil up, then what would the United States never using oil again due to the price of oil? It would drive it down. U.S. big oil is now refining the crude they have to make up for the 2021 glut. Exactly, Lisa. They're catching up to refining. And again, there may be a Volcker magic something where monetary policy has created recessions and inflations in the past, but it hasn't happened since fucking 1950. Every inflation spike we have had in this country has been preceded by an oil spike, the price of oil spiking in the year before, and OPEC turning off the spigots, some sort of limitation, or a huge increase in demand.
And they know all about the Biden war on fossils.
On fossils, yes. He hates, especially the saber-toothed tiger teeth. He doesn't want to see another one as long as he lives. Granted, he was around when they were all first put in the ground, and so maybe that's it. Maybe it just makes him feel old. You know how that feels, Larry.
They figure there may not be a fossil industry after Biden gets done.
Yeah, I know. I like nobody's going to go to a museum ever again. Thank you, Linda. I'm not going to even want to. Who wants to see a fucking fossil ever again? Oh, God.
Frankly, I can't blame them. Can you?
So, fossil fuels is the juice of the gods that runs industry. In the future, everything will still be run off of it. Is the most powerful and great way to do all this stuff. Meanwhile, the Biden administration, while releasing more oil and gas than Trump did, is raising the number of renewables that we will rely on as a country and smartening up our smart grid so they can, if you don't have wind or solar where you are, you can get it from a part of the country that has an abundance of it, say the Nevada or Arizona deserts, or the plains of the middle states or Indiana, something like that. And then, of course, linking up nuclear sites that you could put kind of anywhere as opposed to having to have them close to, water sites that people use for, and yet, according to Kudlow, oil is so good and is the best way to do things, but renewables do not work, will not work. No businesses will be able to run off of it, but oil companies will just take their ball and go home because we don't run off oil and gas anymore. I don't even understand this argument. Thanks, Biden. You can't buy a koala bear doll at the art museum. You can, but you can only buy one at a time. It's brutal. It's just, it hates Jesus. That's why.
Anyway, it turns out that top-line CPI over the past 3 months increased 10.7% at an annual rate, which is a couple of points higher than the 12-month change of 8.6%.
Right. What's been going on in the last 3 months, in the last 100 days? Can anybody think of a major change geopolitically that has affected the cost of fuel and food that has occurred in the last 3 months? Anybody? It must be an executive order that Biden signed, something.
And core prices, that is, takeout food and energy, well, they picked up 6.3% over the past 3 months. That's higher than the 12-month change of 6%.
Right, which is over coming back from COVID. That's closer to what reality is.
Now, hold on, folks. Just hold on. I've got even more numbers coming.
Oh, do you? These aren't numbers. These are percentages. You have to give me a baseline or I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Outside of food and energy, housing and shelter prices, they're picking up steam.
By the way, housing and shelter prices, first of all, these bikers don't care about renters ever, not ever, until suddenly, all of a sudden they do. But secondly, the housing market was on fucking fire. Now it's cooling off, as it should.
0.7% over the past 3 months, compared to 5.5% over the past year. That's a bad trend.
Because it's a percentage change because of the limited availability, because of the slowing of construction, because of COVID.
3 months is faster than the...
Yeah, old people eat this shit up. That's because they believe the Volcker bullshit and have been buying this nonsense forever. So they insist on every time we experience inflation, somebody clamors for the Fed to trigger a recession to somehow drive this shit down to shake the crab bucket so everybody trying to crawl out gets knocked back to the bottom. And it has fuck all to do with the cost of, well, it kind of might have the cost of tea in China, right?
12-month, that's a very bad trending indicator.
No, it's actually specifically reflective on the worldwide disruption of shrinking supply chains. This is what it looks like. You know that, like I said, that giant sucking sound that Ross Perot warned us about? This is what it looks like when it regurgitates. When you get what you want and you're starting to move shit back home, this is what it's going to cost. And you either give a fuck or you don't. Anybody who's clamoring about this particular change in a bunch of ways, including a lot of the stuff that's going on with reshoring factories from China, ask them why they're pro-slavery, I think is the question you'd want to, because the only thing that's going to bring this down is to move that production back to China as quickly as possible at a time when they are using more slave labor that we are aware of than they have since fucking 70s.
Service prices, not good. Services are up 9% the past 3
because people are going out more.
months.
It's summer. We're leading into the summer months. People are doing shit. This is more reflective of the positive change that you've seen than any other thing. Look, when people are spending money, what they're spending it on is indicative of the health of the economy, not just that they're spending it. If people spent if there was a huge rise in spending, oh my God, the consumer is dumping money into the economy, but they're buying prepper kits. That's not a good sign. That's not a sign of a healthy economy. But if they're going on family trips, it is. See what I'm saying? If they're buying clothes as opposed to just foodstuffs, it is. Rents are way too high. That's a matter of, I would argue, the rental problem in the country, largely, and it's balanced out in different in different cities and the like, is because people, because of COVID, they scattered out and they have more money because they were working, they could work at a big city company in a town, and therefore rents could go up to get more money from those people who are quickly relocating, getting away from big city centers during COVID or deciding to do that. And at the same time, there is and this aligns me with sort of Biden's monetary theory more than almost any other thing, is that the problem hasn't been that there's too many mega mansions or that we're not building enough like low income housing. It's that the middle class housing that market is tight. It's like an hourglass. We have a lot of mega mansions and a lot of like super low end stuff, but the middle got squeezed so much that the availability of sort of mid-level housing that's decent and safe areas and all that kind of stuff, the people on the edges of that who financially, can't afford when the rents get higher in those areas, they end up renting places that you would normally think of as low income housing. They end up squeezing into that. They end up going, if a one bedroom is, $2,000, like a regular one in Los Angeles, and people can find a one bedroom in a shittier neighborhood effectively for $1,800 or $1,500, they're gonna take it. That they've got to. They don't really have a choice, especially if maybe it's a single parent with a child and they need the room for this kid, and then they make up that difference, in rent by commuting or that kind of thing. So there's a dearth of middle-sized houses. The squeeze of the middle class has been a pressure cooker too in rental properties in particular. Yeah, a studio in the Tenderloin is almost $3K. That's fucking ridiculous.
Only 5.7% over the year. And even if you took out energy, services are still up 8% compared to only 5.2 for the year. In other words, the 3-month is much faster than the 12-month.
Right, because in the last few months, we have gotten past the Omicron variant, and even with the rise in gas prices caused by the Russia invasion of Ukraine, which is very specific, very acute, easily trackable, people are still going out and doing shit. The fucking Top Gun and Jurassic World made a shit ton of money, like biggest weekends in like 6 years, not even like 2. Not like, okay, sure, they're going to be bigger than 2020 or 2021. One bedroom in Metro Detroit is $1,500. Exactly. Like it should be closer in that area. Metro Detroit should arguably be $1,200 for a one bedroom. And that means that if you can afford $1,500, you got to think in how much is your phone and all this. Because if you live a middle class life and you can afford that amount of rent, technically speaking, on how much money you have, that $1,200 and $1,500 is the difference between your like phone and internet and maybe your electrical bill as well. So if you're factoring that in, that I can afford this for shelter, then the space is one payment, but all the other stuff that goes with the space is a huge factor. And they don't work that into it at all. Higher prices are World War III discussed, right?
Used car prices are booming, so are new car prices. Healthcare costs are...
Which means people are buying them. Prices of gas, gas, food, and basics continue to soar. That's what they add in the used car and all that kind of stuff. That's what jacks it up even beyond the gas thing. That's what makes it in this 8% bullshit. But if people, again... If the economy is crashing the way they say it is, and it definitely needs help, but the argument is that it needs more money infused in it, not less.
Starting to pick up steam, and power and utilities are off the charts.
It's summer. That's air conditioning.
Electricity, for example.
Yeah, it's weird. What are you going to tell me next? That electricity goes up in the summer and gas prices, like natural gas, goes up in the fucking winter? Derp.
Is up 18.3% for the past 3 months, compared to 12% for the year.
Right.
Meanwhile, consumer confidence plunged today in the University of Michigan report.
Gee, I wonder why people are speaking with them so frankly about the realities in the world. And it's not like we're not on the verge of a possible World War III, according to Russian media, where they're just like, yep, the Balkans are next. And this is really a war with NATO anyway, so fuck the world.
And inflation expectations inside that tally went up again.
So what? Again, of course they're going to expect this.
And the Atlanta Fed...
House Sparks, do you ever get really tired deep inside? No. I do not. I get physically exhausted sometimes, but I am madly in love with the human race, so it keeps me, motivated and moving. I also have a kid, so I don't even entertain thoughts like that. It's not an option.
Wage tracker, well, that's now up 6.1% in May. It's another troublesome number.
The what? Other day, the what? I'm sorry. The what was? Listen to this shit. What? The what now?
Now up 6.
What was up 6 months?
Tally went up again. And the Atlanta Fed wage tracker, well, that's now up 6.1% in May.
The wage tracker is up 6.1%. Wages are up 6.1%, which is very troubling. Why didn't you put that on the screen? Did you ever notice anything? Anybody? Maybe you will. Maybe you will. You think so?
It's another troublesome number. And the other day,
it's a troublesome number that we're not going to put on screen next to the rest of them because we don't want to show you a graph that says wages are up 6%. Did you know? Isn't that an interesting distinction? I find that fascinating, right? They put everything else, like all the cost stuff, and it going up, they will put there. But then if you put 6.2%, wages are increasing, and then you've got to balance it out like, okay, well, if wages are up 6.2%, inflation's up 8.6%, then it's really closer to 2%. And across the, yeah, this is fucking on purpose. Yeah, Larry slurring is up 100%.
Janet Yellen, you know her, our friend from the hostage video, she claimed that
all right,
Europe,
I don't know. That was probably some reference to something.
And all the big countries have the same inflation problems that we do in the U.S. But that's a big falsehood.
Oh yeah? What countries are dodging inflation? Let me guess. China?
A couple of months ago, the San Francisco Fed showed the core inflation in the
couple of months ago?
U.S. was more than double the OECD countries. And former Clinton and Obama economist Jason...
The OECD countries. Let's see if that's true. Hold on one second. Let's see if I can find. A couple of months ago. So let's see. Hold on one second. Let me grab this real quick and then. Sorry. Whoops. Let's see. The Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. Yes, my love? Are you done? No, I am not. But I love you. Everything okay? Okay. It's my son. He just had a question for me. So this is the, let's see. I want to see who's in, which are the, so the, just so you know, the OECD countries are Austria, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, Germany, Greece. Where is the list again? Here it is. Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Turkey, United Kingdom, and the United States. These are the OECD countries. Okay, and here's the OECD countries. Here we go. This is the inflation surges to 8.8%. in March 2022. Well, that's higher than us, but okay. I guess that's the overall. Here's the OECD in general. This is the total. Here you go. Japan's is at 1.2% annual. France is at 4.5. UK 6.2. We're up here at 8.5. Germany's at 7.3. This is less food and energy at 6.5. So ours is closer to that. Less food and energy. Theirs is 3.4. I don't know how that includes secondarily. Of course, their food and their energy costs, there's a huge leap between there. That might be Russian oil. That's the distance between here and Russian oil in general. But we're basically in line with the overall total. Now, this is lowest. Who else? France. Italy's is. Now that's energy. Okay. See, that's the inflation CPI. Yeah. Okay. So inflation CPI, the consumer price index, is up over a point, but then that doesn't show us a baseline of where we were beforehand per se. So this is, again, inflation, the CPI is not the same thing, but we'll worry about that later. And these are annual growth rate of 39.4. Here's Canada. UK is the growth rate total to the CPI. Okay. Where are we going? Okay. France, UK, here's the United States. This is our less food and energy. This is Yeah. So I thought this was all about oil, because here's Italy's, and their whole thing has gone up to here to year-on-year CPI inflation. This is the contribution. The contribution of this is generalized CPI. This is cost of. This is consumers being able to buy shit and doing it. This is the cost of oil of energy and its impact. Its impact on it is 2%. It's way less than the fact that people are willing to buy a bunch of stuff. This is consumerism. This is people being in the first in line to buy stuff on the international market, and probably because of shipments from China finally kicking in at one point and then kicking back down.
Furman, just the other day,
the U.S. and Europe have different inflation problems. It's more painful on the continent, but more persistent and demand-driven in America. What did I just say? What did I just say? See this consumer? This is demand-driven. That's demand. That means the reason prices are up is because people have money to pay for it and the dollar is strong. This is a comparative amount across the funds.
A Wall Street Journal op-ed.
Fucking dickheads. This is so aggravating.
It showed that the U.S. has about 3 percentage points more cumulative inflation than the Euro area
because of demand.
Since the onset.
Because of we're the only place with rising wages at all.
Of the pandemic. And in fact, recently, U.S. core inflation in May, as I said, up 6.3%. It's only 3.8% in the Euro area. That's core. And wages
that's core
in the U.S. are growing about twice as fast as in Europe. And most of this is because our...
See what I say? What did I... All right. He's not showing this chart. He won't show this chart. Wages in the United States are growing at double the pace of Europe, and we have twice the inflation, and it's demand-based inflation.
Wages in the U.S. are growing about twice as fast as in Europe, and that's core. And wages in the U.S. are growing about twice as fast as in Europe, and that's core. And wages in the U.S. are growing about twice as fast as in Europe, and...
Motherfucker. This is so stupid. Do you think that little factoid, which, by the way, he's also not putting a chart up of, we have double the demand CPI increase that Europe has, and our wages are growing twice as fast. You fucking think?
And most of this is because our fiscal policies have created a significant excess demand, while Europe's nominal GDP remains several percentage points below trend.
Did you hear that?
While Europe's nominal GDP remains several percentage points below trend. And while Europe's nominal GDP remains several percentage points below trend.
They haven't even caught up from the fucking COVID yet. There's one particular area where America's economy has not moved back up to catch up with trend in terms of where it was headed for the last 15 years on an arc, right? And that's, you know what that is? You want to know what that is? I wish I could pull up this graph. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Where do we get our strategic stocks, gas? I see gas, gold, refining fuel. It's got to be some kind. Here we go. Dip down. There we go. Yeah, I'm not fine. I'll have to look for the chart on this one because it's kind of specific. But yeah. Oh, here you go. That doesn't really tell us anything. Hold on. Basically, like, we haven't caught up with refining from 2018. That basically refining hit it sort of crawled up. It was headed in a certain direction, and then it took a shit essentially in 2018, started to drift a little bit lower, and then it ditched 2020, and we still haven't risen back up to the direction it was going in 2018 before it started to move into recession territory because of Trump. Ironically enough, is like energy independence and all that shit. The refining part of it, he didn't give a crap about. So refining, started to, like, I guess it was done elsewhere. We were shipping so much oil out of the country, we weren't refining it here.
Messrs. Furman and Summers and Ratner have all consistently warned about excess spending, but neither Ms. Yellen or Mr. Deese or their boss, Mr. Biden, will admit to it.
That's because it's not the case in any of the numbers you have just laid out, you dumbass.
And never owning it means never understanding it.
Oh, okay. So you don't own it, is what you're saying.
Now,
this is like this. Like, how do you? What, does he not hear the words that come out of his own mouth?
Remember years ago, the famous movie, "Being in Love Means Never Having to Say You're Sorry."
What? Jesus Christ.
But being in high inflation is really a different matter.
What? High inflation? We're not in high inflation, fucko. We have a high CPI because of supply shock and an oil market that cratered, recovered, and then took a slice out because of Russia. That's it. That's what's happening. That's reality. That's where we are. That's how the earth is. That's there. If you want to talk about there are truths in the world that are immutable, that's one of them. That's where we are. You play the hand you're dealt and fucking act like it. And I will tell you right now that everybody at Fox News in terms of economics right now is bluffing.
Another thing Ms. Yellen refuses to learn. When she testified before Congress this past week, she continues to push the FY23 Biden budget, which has at least $5 trillion in new spending and another $3.5 trillion in higher taxes, both of which would
so only about $2 trillion in extra spending because it's paid for with $3 trillion.
Massively increase inflation. And of course, with today's report, real wages continue plunging over 3%. Frankly, the economy is barely breaking even right.
You're not going to throw a chart up on that? Real wages. Define real wages, son.
Right now. It dropped 1.5% in Q1, and the latest GDP tracker from the Atlanta Fed shows a 0.9% gain for Q2. Wow. Most regrettably, the Federal Reserve, which erred mightily along with the Bidens a year and a half ago, they're going to have to adopt a much more aggressive policy to...
Yeah, this is he's basically calling... Here's the thing. Republicans only benefit if a recession is triggered because they can blame it on Biden. And the way you trigger a recession is for the the Fed specifically to raise interest rates in a shocking fashion that will drive us into a recession. That's what they're hoping for. And then even though they're calling for it, like right now, he's about to say the Fed has to get inflation under control. And to do that, which he has no control over. The Fed has no control over this kind of inflation. Let me say that again. The Fed has no control over this kind of inflation. This kind of CPI rise is not based on monetary policy. It is based largely on the availability of energy and goods. That's it. It's that no matter how much money you have, you can't buy oil that you can't get out of the ground or that you're not allowed to buy from Russia. That's how it fucking works. And they want to raise it. Yeah, they're going to raise it to 0.75 points. The funny thing is that the fact that it would trigger a recession at even one point means that there's so much foreign money in our stock market that will run for the hills and then buy American bonds now that they're, that the amount you can get from them will go up is silly. Again, as the stock market goes down in relation to that, it's a sign of a healthy economy. But right now the economy going up or the stock market going up, everybody, if it goes down as it is now, people are like, they forget everything they said about the stock market is not the economy.
Raise their target rate and pull cash out of the economy. To quote my pal Steve Forbes, if they can...
Steve Forbes, Jesus Christ, who is basically the guy who owns the video store in Lost Boys.
Print money, well, then they can unprint it. There's probably no way out of this inflationary recession scenario. But as an optimist, I do have a different plan.
All right, what's the plan? Here it is. Let's finally we're going to hear what it is. Okay, so if you can print money, you can shred money. All right.
First, make Trump tax cuts permanent and slash.
That won't have any effect on any of this shit. What are you talking about? That would put more money into the system.
Personal tax rates, as well as a simplified code, all that would increase the production side of the economy.
No, it wouldn't. There's not enough in there that would affect R&D or the purchasing of if you just make those tax cuts, that's not like for buying gear and stuff. That just puts more cash into the system. That's more cash in the hands of, spenders and businesses. That's a form of money printing in that particular situation. You're just handing it back.
And second, deregulate energy.
Deregulate. Yeah, we need an energy system that's much closer to what they have in Russia, up where no one lives, or in China where no one can live anymore.
And industry everywhere. Also,
yeah, deregulate every industry. People are. How about this? Fine everyone. You take money out of the system for fining people every time they missed they didn't cross a T or dot an I on regulation forms. Then you're removing. How about that? You're shredding money, Larry. What the fuck does this have to do with anything? This is just dumb.
It'll boost the supply side of the economy, and
no, it won't. What are you going to deregulate? What he means is take off the sanctions.
Third, freeze domestic spending, and fourth,
freeze domestic spending. Yes. At a time when there is not enough liquidity in the markets, stop any money that's going out from the government.
Defend the value of King Dollar.
Defend the value of King Dollar. Well, yeah, obviously the dollar is being destroyed right now. Yeah. Now okay, hold on. Wait. This is fun. Here's the dollar. The dollar is worth $1.05. In the last 52 weeks, it's gone up 15 cents in worth. It's in the last 5 days, it's up 2.74%. In a month, it was 1.48. In 3 months, it's gone up 6.82%. I'm starting to think if we line the worth of the dollar up against what you're getting for it, that might be the issue. It might be that people are trying to take dollars out of the United States because multinationals need that cash. that where you're seeing price gouging, if at all, you're seeing in that they need to pay their bills with US dollars because they're worth so much. The year to date, it's up 9%, 15.6% for the year. How come? This is interesting. Why don't they put that number right next to the CPI and the inflation number that they're putting up? Buy Bitcoin, right? Isn't that weird? You didn't think they'd do that? Is this the most the dollar's ever been worth? No, it's been slightly higher before, but rarely. And it's not seen as good if it's too much, because it raises it lowers the value of your exporting, because it's better to buy cheap stuff from overseas because they want your dollar for more than it is to it raises the prices of what people can buy your American stuff for going out of the country. And there isn't enough of it around. If there was too much, again, if we had a liquidity problem in the United States for real, like if the problem was there was too much money in the system, this is monetary inflation caused by the Fed, quote unquote, printing money. If that was the case, the dollar would be worth about 89 cents. It would get into the 85 to 89%, and that would scare the shit out of everyone. That's not the issue. When the dollar is worth more than a dollar, effectively, and what it can purchase, and it's sort of standardized market like level, you're not talking about a situation where there's too much money in the system. And by the way, none of what he's talking, I mean, like, this is gibberish at the end. Like, forget it. And by the way, this conversation is embarrassing. It was, by the way, and it was always embarrassing. Everybody's been getting this sort of monetary policy wrong for a very long time. It's always struck me as very odd that every time they fix it, they trigger a recession. That does not seem to be a fix. It seems to be create you solve a problem with a greater problem. It's just odd. You would think that if it really was what it was, you could you could set up a situation where there would be certain ways that you could trigger the buying of treasuries and the removal of money from the market and kind of keep this even. You could kind of do it all the time. But in fact, it doesn't do it, because it's hard. Like, I've struggled myself with like comprehending some of the weirder monetary policies that go on in the world, because they're fucked up. They don't really make any sense. That's the weird thing. But in the case of like the Fed loans money to banks and gives them reserve credits. They can loan money out. They loan it at interest, and then they get money back, and the Fed gets interest on that money, and the bank gets if they loan it for 3%, they keep their slice, and whatever the percentage was loaned to them by the Fed makes that slice. Okay, and that's how inflation occurs at about 2%, because the idea is that whatever the Fed sets, the banks will add 2% to that or so, and that's what raises the price and the value, the cost of money over time. And so when the Fed buys back some of these securities, these reserve holdings that the banks have to lend out money, if it buys them back and shelves them, then those banks can't loan out that money into existence. So there's less money supply in the country, but they don't print more money. And if people don't take those loans, it's moot anyways. Most banks don't meet their reserve point in the US market ever. They didn't even do it pre-2008. And right now, if it used to be that's how you did it, though. The bank, the Fed gives these Fed coins basically out, and then you can loan out based on that reserve to a certain, percentage of what you've got in reserve. And then if they remove some of that, then you've got less to work with. But now with the repo market and overseas markets and that kind of stuff, banks can loan to their subsidiaries overseas and borrow it back if the Fed's being chintzy. and still loan the same amount of money. So there's no direct way where Forbes is saying if you can print money, you can shred it. No, you can't. That's the thing. You cannot. You can. And most of the economic policy that people are talking about our modern life and our modern economy with are predate personal computers and credit cards and EBT and certainly credit default swaps and any of that shit. Half this stuff is before there was any form of that all ledgers were paper. Most of the monetary policy these assholes are trying to define our modern economic policy on was crafted, thought up, and considered settled when it wasn't at all. In an era when people literally would have to scratch something on a ledger and mail a paper check, and then this before they could even phone somebody to see if the fucking check was real. And they're still using this? This is like the conversations about capitalism and Marxism and the way people talk about it. Most people, when they talk about capitalism, are talking about resource capitalism, meaning a king with land or somebody who was born on top of oil. And way before anybody could create an app or a piece of software or something that takes up no physical space, that people will work and pay for because they want it as a service, that was fucking impossible. And the same with Marxism. It was dreamt up when most people, we had farms and factories were brand fucking new. None of it had been, none of the factories themselves were automated in any way. Just ridiculous. Why, Michael? What's the issue? Is there an issue? I happen to think this is important. I'm enjoying myself. TR gravity after me, little dogs. Okay. Anyways, we'll move on from this topic. Why would we take food from China? We don't. China imports 85% of its energy and 80% of its food. How do you invest in real estate or Wall Street? More or a little both? I don't. I have a small Robinhood account, and I have a mortgage. There you go. Oh, nothing's good. Lisa Housepark, don't let Kudlow give you an ulcer. No, I'm not. Honestly, it's not even him. It's the entire argument around this shit. Nobody talks about this. And they talk about it in terms of it being as if this is settled. As if this is actually how everything, of course, when you have inflation, the Fed removes money because they printed it. And of course, it will trigger a mild or a lasting recession, but that's it. Right? That's it. That's whatever. Of course, none of that is fucking true. None of it. Yeah. You see produce from China and Walmart. Yikes. Well, I would stay away from it. It's just voodoo economics rephrased. In some ways, Ed's 3 Tech, it is. That's right. Our chat room is kicking in with some conversation on here. Let's jump ahead. So, we obviously this is usually one of the topics I get into on the morning show. Specifically, because I have more room to talk about it, and we don't miss out on clips and the like.